There are documents so ancient, so profoundly disturbing, that some researchers believe they should never have been uncovered. Manuscripts written before the rise of humanity. Texts that describe impossible events. Symbols that defy linguistic analysis. And places that do not appear on any modern map. These writings don't belong in museums. They don't fit in classrooms, and they were never meant to reach the public. Tonight, you will discover the lost fragments of forbidden history pointing to a time long before human civilization. A time erased from our collective memory. A time that someone, or something, wanted us to forget. Our story begins in the early 1900s, in the desolate mountains of northern Turkey. A team of archaeologists stumbled upon a collapsed stone chamber, buried beneath layers of volcanic rock and frozen earth. What they found inside would challenge everything we thought we knew about the origins of civilization. A manuscript written in a script older than Sumerian, older than Egyptian hieroglyphs, older than anything humanity's ever claimed to produce. The material itself defied explanation. Not papyrus, not parchment. Something that resembled crystallized bone, impossibly preserved despite its apparent age. The text describes a world illuminated by two suns, a world inhabited not by humans, but by towering beings known only as the architects of the first dawn. These entities stood 3 times the height of modern men, with elongated skulls and hands bearing 6 fingers. Their purpose was singular and terrifying: to shape continents according to a design that predated the formation of the earth itself. But the manuscript speaks of something darker, a catastrophic conflict between 2 rival factions of architects. One group sought to complete the design, the other sought to destroy it entirely. The war that followed reshaped the planet, creating fissures in reality itself. Mountains collapsed, oceans boiled, and when the dust settled, one of the suns had vanished from the sky. For decades, the academic world dismissed this text as elaborate mythology, ancient fiction created by a civilization with an overactive imagination. But then, something changed. In the 1990s, satellite imaging technology advanced to the point where geologists could scan deep beneath the Earth's surface, and what they found shook them to their core. Massive underground formations, geometric structures buried miles beneath the surface, in the exact locations described by the manuscript, chambers large enough to house entire cities, corridors stretching for hundreds of miles in perfect straight lines, and at the center of it all, something that defied natural explanation. A perfectly spherical chamber, 3 miles in diameter, with walls so smooth they appeared machined. The Turkish government immediately classified the findings. The excavation site was sealed. The archaeologists who made the initial discovery were quietly reassigned to other projects, and the manuscript itself disappeared into a private collection, never to be publicly displayed again. But copies had been made, photographs had been taken, and the story began to spread through underground academic circles, whispered about in university libraries and late-night research sessions, because the implications were too staggering to ignore. If the manuscript was real, then humanity was not the first intelligent civilization on Earth. We were not even the second. We were inheritors of a world shaped by forces beyond our comprehension, walking on continents designed by entities that existed before the concept of time itself had meaning. In 1972, on a cold morning in Iceland, a fisherman named Björn Hakanarsson was checking his nets along a rocky cliffside when he noticed something unusual. A section of the cliff face had collapsed during the previous night's storm, revealing a narrow opening. Inside, partially embedded in the rock, was a sealed metal cylinder. The cylinder was unlike anything found in Icelandic archaeological records. The metal was covered in a strange patina, suggesting extreme age, yet showed no signs of corrosion. The seal was intact. When Björn brought it to the National Museum in Reykjavik, experts were baffled. Carbon dating proved impossible. The metal contained isotopes that shouldn't exist in nature. When they finally opened the cylinder, they found a piece of animal skin, perfectly preserved, inscribed with text in an unknown language. But accompanying the text were illustrations, star charts, detailed drawings of coastlines, and a series of symbols that would later be recognized as astronomical calculations of terrifying precision. A linguistics professor at the University of Iceland spent 3 years deciphering the text. What he discovered kept him awake for weeks. The manuscript spoke of a silent coast, a region where the ocean would one day stop producing waves, as if time itself had been paused, and it contained a warning, repeated 3 times in bold symbols. When the waters fall still, the watchers rise. The professor dismissed it as apocalyptic poetry, the ravings of an ancient doomsday cult. He filed his translation and moved on to other projects. But then, 3 years later, something happened that nobody could explain. On March 17, 1975, at exactly 3:33 a.m. Greenwich Mean Time, an unexplained seismic event struck the North Atlantic. Monitoring stations from Greenland to Scotland detected it simultaneously. It wasn't an earthquake. The readings showed something else entirely. A pulse, a single, massive pulse of energy that rippled through the ocean floor. And for exactly 42 seconds, an entire section of the ocean went still, completely calm. Ships reported that the water became smooth as glass. No waves, no movement, no sound. Sailors described it as though someone had pressed pause on reality itself. Then, just as suddenly, it resumed. The waves returned. The ocean continued its endless rhythm. But something had changed. In the days following the event, marine biologists noted unusual behavior in sea life. Whales began swimming in perfect geometric patterns. Deep-sea creatures that normally never surfaced were found floating near the shore, not dead, but dormant, as if waiting for something. When researchers returned to the manuscript, they made a chilling discovery. The star charts didn't depict the sky as it appeared in ancient times. They depicted the sky as it would appear on March 17, 1975. The exact date of the Silent Coast event, the manuscript had predicted it, down to the precise alignment of celestial bodies, word for word. The Icelandic government, at the request of NATO officials, classified the manuscript immediately. The professor who translated it was asked to sign a non-disclosure agreement. The cylinder was relocated to an undisclosed facility, and the official explanation given to the public was that the Silent Coast event had been a rare but natural phenomenon, a seismic wave caused by atmospheric pressure changes. But those who knew the truth understood something far more disturbing. The manuscript wasn't a prophecy. It was a schedule, a timeline of events that had been set in motion thousands of years ago. And the Silent Coast was only the beginning. The final manuscript is the most unsettling of all, not because of what it is, but because of what it knows. Because unlike the others, which speak of ancient times and forgotten ages, this manuscript describes us, our world, our civilization, with impossible accuracy. It was discovered in 2003 in a sealed chamber beneath a monastery in Tibet. The chamber had been sealed for at least 800 years, according to geological analysis of the mortar. Yet when researchers translated the text, they found descriptions of technology that didn't exist 800 years ago. Technology that, in some cases, didn't exist until the 21st century. The manuscript speaks of a civilization living in the third cycle. A civilization with towers of glass and metal that pierce the clouds, flying machines that move without birds' wings, artificial suns that illuminate the night, and a world connected by invisible threads of communication, where information travels faster than human speech, where people across vast distances can see each other as faces, as clearly as if standing in the same room. In other words, it describes modern humanity. Our cities, our airplanes, our electric lights, our internet, written down and sealed away centuries before any of it existed. But here's the part that makes your blood run cold. The manuscript doesn't present this as a prophecy. It presents it as a historical record, a documentation of something that has already happened, not once, but twice before, because the text explicitly states that humanity is not the first civilization to reach this level of technological advancement. Not the second, but the third. The manuscript describes two previous iterations of human civilization, both of which reached or exceeded our current level of development. Both built great cities. Both mastered the elements. Both reached for the stars. and both disappeared. Not gradually, not through war or natural disaster. They simply stopped, vanished in what the manuscript calls the silence. No ruins, no archaeological evidence, no survivors. Just silence, as if someone pressed a button and reset the entire world, wiped the slate clean, allowed nature to reclaim what civilization had built, and then started the process again from the beginning. The manuscript provides details about the previous cycles. The second cycle civilization existed approximately 60,000 years ago. They built their greatest cities on what is now the ocean floor, on continental shelves that were above water during the last ice age. They had advanced mathematics, sophisticated astronomy, and according to the text, they had discovered something the manuscript calls the pattern, a fundamental truth about the nature of reality itself, and that discovery is what triggered their end. The manuscript suggests that certain knowledge is forbidden, not by law or religion, but by something else, something that monitors human development and intervenes when we approach specific thresholds. The text calls it the mechanism of forgetting. The first cycle civilization existed even further back, perhaps 200,000 years ago. The details about them are fragmented, as if whoever wrote the manuscript had incomplete information. But what is clear is that they advanced even further than the second cycle. They had begun to manipulate what the manuscript describes as the fabric beneath the world, possibly a reference to quantum mechanics or dimensional physics, and they were preparing to leave Earth entirely when they were stopped. Reset. Erased. The manuscript ends with a chilling observation. It notes that the third cyclower, Cycalis, approaching the same technological and knowledge thresholds that triggered the previous resets, and it asks a question that no one can answer. When the third cycle reaches the point of knowing, will the mechanism of forgetting activate again? Or will this cycle finally break the pattern? There's a postscript added in different handwriting, possibly by a later scribe. It reads, "This manuscript must be preserved. Future cycles must be warned. They must know they are not the first. They must know the pattern exists. Only through knowledge of the cycle can the cycle be broken. Hide this text where it will be found when needed. The watchers must not discover it before then." Researchers who have studied this manuscript struggle with a philosophical nightmare. If the text is genuine, the evidence suggests it might be then everything we believe about human history is a carefully constructed illusion. We're not the pinnacle of human achievement. We're just the latest attempt. And if the pattern holds, we're approaching our own extinction event, not from climate change or nuclear war or any danger we can see and measure, but from something else, something that has been watching humanity for hundreds of thousands of years, ensuring we never advance beyond a certain point. Some researchers theorize that the ancient megalithic structures found worldwide Göbekli Tepe, Pumapunku, the pyramids are remnants of previous cycles that somehow survived the reset. Others suggest that myths of lost civilizations like Atlantis aren't myths at all, but garbled memories of the second cycle passed down through oral tradition until they became legend. But the most disturbing theory comes from Dr. James Morrison, a theoretical physicist who studied the manuscript for 6 months before suffering a breakdown. In his final paper before leaving academia, he proposed that the resets aren't punishments or random catastrophes. They're corrections. He suggested that reality itself has a design, an intended pathway, and human consciousness occasionally develops in ways that threaten to break that design. The resets aren't meant to destroy humanity. They're meant to preserve the structure of reality itself. In his last interview before disappearing from public life, Dr. Morrison said something that haunts everyone who heard it. What if we not supposed to remember? What if forgetting is the only thing that keeps the universe stable? Maybe some knowledge really is forbidden, not by gods or aliens, but by the fundamental laws of existence. And maybe we're about to discover it again. If these manuscripts are real and the evidence surrounding each discovery suggests they might be, then our understanding of history is unjust, incomplete. It has been deliberately rewritten. These documents were hidden for a reason, buried in chambers sealed for centuries, protected by geographical isolation and institutional secrecy. They weren't meant for human eyes. They speak of forgotten worlds, erased civilizations, and warnings left by those who came before us. Warnings we're only now beginning to understand. The manuscripts tell us we're not alone in time. We're not pioneers exploring virgin territory. We're the latest in a long line of human civilizations, walking the same path, making the same discoveries, approaching the same forbidden knowledge that destroyed everyone who came before us. And here's what keeps researchers awake at night. We're approaching those same thresholds right now. Quantum computing, artificial intelligence, genetic manipulation, dimensional physics, the same frontiers that, according to the manuscripts, triggered previous resets. We're racing toward discoveries that might activate the mechanism of forgetting once again. Some researchers believe the manuscripts are hoaxes, elaborate forgeries, created to deceive and mislead. But they can't explain the physical evidence. The impossible materials, the accurate predictions, the corroborating satellite data, the underground structures that match ancient descriptions. Others believe the manuscripts are real, but misunderstood, that they describe natural cycles of civilization rise and fall, interpreted through the lens of ancient superstition and fear. But that doesn't explain the precision, the technological details, the warnings that came true. And a small group believes something far more disturbing. They believe the manuscripts are exactly what they claim to be, records from previous cycles. This manuscript wasn't found by accident. It was recovered during a classified military expedition, deep inside the Amazon rainforest, in a region so remote that it had never been surveyed by modern cartographers. The year was 1984. The location remains redacted in all official documents. A joint American-Brazilian Special Forces unit was conducting reconnaissance when their helicopter experienced catastrophic electrical failure. The instruments went haywire. Compasses spun wildly. Radio communications dissolved into static. They crashed in a clearing that, according to their maps, shouldn't have existed. As the survivors searched for a way out, they discovered something that made them forget about rescue entirely. A structure not built by indigenous tribes, not built by any known civilization. A massive stone complex, half buried in vegetation, constructed from blocks weighing hundreds of tons, fitted together with no mortars, no gaps. Precision that would challenge modern engineering. Inside the structure, protected by a chamber sealed with a mechanism more sophisticated than any ancient locking system, they found the manuscript. Unlike the others, this one was bound in metal. Its pages made from an alloy that later analysis would show contained platinum, gold, and an unidentified element that doesn't appear on the periodic table. The manuscript contains a map. Not a map of our world as we know it. A map of continents that do not appear in any human record. Unknown coastlines stretching across oceans we've never charted. Mountain ranges that dwarf the Himalayas. Rivers that flow in impossible directions. And symbols marking locations with names that translate roughly to the seed vaults, the listening posts, and the gates between. But what terrified the military officials who examined it was a massive landmass drawn at the bottom of the parchment. A continent beneath Antarctica. Not ancient Antarctica from millions of years ago, but Antarctica as it exists today, shown with the ice removed. And beneath that ice, the map depicts something that shouldn't be possible. Cities. Enormous cities, arranged in perfect geometric patterns. Structures so vast they make our largest buildings look like toys, and at the center of it all, marked with a symbol that appears nowhere else in human history. A location labeled in text that took linguists months to translate: the seat of the Eternal Library. According to the accompanying text, this library contains every version of Earth's history. Not just the history we know, but the histories that were. The timelines that were erased, the civilizations that were reset. The manuscript claims that reality itself has been rewritten multiple times, and the evidence of each iteration is stored in this impossible structure beneath the ice. The expedition team that discovered the manuscript reported something else, something that appears in the official reports only as redacted paragraphs. They claimed that as they left the structure, they saw figures watching them from the tree line. Tall figures. Too tall, with proportions that weren't quite human. When they tried to approach, the figures vanished. leaving behind only footprints that measured nearly 3 feet in length. The manuscript was immediately classified at the highest levels. The location of the structure was marked as a no-fly zone. Satellite imagery of the area was deliberately corrupted, and the team members were debriefed, paid substantial sums, and required to sign documentation that threatened severe consequences if they ever spoke publicly about what they had found. But rumors persisted. In 2001, a Russian geological survey team operating in Antarctica reported unusual electromagnetic readings coming from deep beneath the ice sheet in the exact location indicated on the forbidden map. They requested permission to conduct a deeper investigation. Permission was denied. The survey team was recalled, and the Russian government officially stated that the readings were the result of instrument malfunction. In 2009, an international team of glaciologists studying ice core samples from Antarctica discovered something embedded in ice, dating back over 12,000 years. Metallic fragments. Analysis showed they were manufactured, not natural. The fragments contained microscopic etching that matched the symbols from the forbidden map exactly. The samples were confiscated by government officials before publication. The research was never completed. If the forbidden map is real, then the world we know is only a fragment of a much larger story. A story that someone has gone to extraordinary lengths to hide. And the question that keeps researchers awake at night is simple and terrifying. Why? What could be so dangerous about the truth of our past that it requires this level of secrecy? The next manuscript is unlike any other in the Forbidden Collection. Discovered in 1999 inside a cavern system in Namibia during what was officially recorded as a geological survey, but was actually a covert search for unusual artifacts. This document defies every attempt at conventional analysis. The ink used in its creation contains elements not found anywhere on Earth. Specifically, an isotope of iridium that shouldn't exist naturally, and trace amounts of a metallic compound that, when analyzed, showed characteristics matching no known element. The fibers that make up the pages do match the DNA of any plant or animal in any database. They're organic, but not from any organism science has ever catalogued. Most disturbing of all, the symbols were carved with microscopic precision. When examined under electron microscopy, the grooves show perfectly straight edges at the molecular level, as if etched by technology far beyond ancient capabilities. The precision is so exact that it exceeds what modern laser cutting equipment can achieve. The manuscript is short, just 12 pages, but those 12 pages have consumed the careers of dozens of researchers. The text doesn't follow any known linguistic pattern. It's not pictographic like ancient Egyptian. It's not syllabic like cuneiform. It appears to be something else entirely, a symbolic language that conveys meaning through the relationship between symbols, rather than the symbols themselves. After years of analysis, a breakthrough came from an unlikely source. A quantum physicist working on pattern recognition algorithms noticed that the symbols matched mathematical sequences found in subatomic particle interactions. When the manuscript was analyzed using quantum linguistics, a field that barely existed at that partial translation emerged. The text issues a single warning, repeated throughout the manuscript in variations that suggest emphasis, urgency, desperation. When the final cycle ends, the gate of returning will open. Those who were first will be last. Those who were cast out will return, and the world will know them by their works. The final page contains symbols that appear burned into the material. Not printed, not carved, burned. But the burn marks have no chemical explanation. There's no residue of combustion, no carbon scoring. The material shows localized heating that reached approximately 3,000 degrees Celsius, but only in the precise pattern of the symbols, with no damage to the surrounding area. Modern technology cannot replicate this effect. Researchers who have spent extended periods studying the manuscript report unusual experiences. Vivid dreams of places they've never been, a sensation of being watched when alone in the archives. Some report hearing a low-frequency hum that seems to come from the manuscript itself, though no recording equipment has ever detected it. One researcher, Dr. Sarachun, spent 3 months attempting to create a complete translation. On the final day of her project, she submitted her work and immediately requested a leave of absence. She told colleagues that she couldn't continue, that the manuscript had revealed something she wasn't prepared to understand. When asked to elaborate, she would only say, "It's not a warning about the future. It's a reminder about the past, and we're not supposed to remember." Dr. Chun never returned.